Hi, this is Roger, thanks for dropping by. It's kitchen time, playing about with pots and stuff as we do. I've gone through all my notes and literally I've looked at the dates that things were last repotted and combined with what they were repotted in. Yeah, because with the Orchids bark it's supposed to last a really long time, but nonetheless it's still dependent on how long it stays wet and whether it stays constantly wet or whether it's allowed to totally dry in between with a lot of air. It will depend on the decomposition rate. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how good your bark is or how good your moss is, it will deteriorate over time. That's a Paphiopedilum, and it's one of the ones that will be affected worst by media starting to break down, because in the main they don't like acidic media, simple as that. And if you use an organic media and it starts to break down, the moisture that remains in the pot will become acidic. It's a natural progression. pH will just naturally lower itself. Now this is it's probably registered by now, but it's an unnamed hybrid as far as that's what it was when I got it. It's Paphiopedilum Warden crossed with Paphiopedilum Raisin Wine. And I can't for the life of me remember whether this... I just don't remember what the blooms look like on this, but with a name like Raisin Wine, that sounds a bit reddish, doesn't it? So it's probably one of the darker coloured ones. But I'm determined to try and get some paths to actually grow into larger sized plants. And the only reason they haven't been doing that is root loss, where they've stayed in the media too long. And it literally is as simple as that. You know, they don't grow many roots. And if you lose one out of three, you've just lost a third of its root base. Now at the moment, this doesn't have bad roots, and I'd like to keep it like that. And the fact is, the latest growth is quite small. Hang on, where's my camera? The latest growth is quite small. It's relatively new for a Paphiopedilum. You know, it's about 30 years old to get that big. And yes, I am joking. They are slow. But at some point, this has already pushed out. This new growth already has done its roots. And it lost one of them, and that's because it was too high in the pot. So it just dried out. They need to get into media. So you've got to try and balance these things. You've got to try and get them far enough in the pot that the roots get straight in and are hydrated, and not put it so far in that the base of the plant rots. The older growth on here is highly unlikely to push out any roots, so these sheaths can stay there. I'm probably going to damage the plant trying to get them off. All I'm interested in is this new growth with its associated roots, getting it into some new media, and at some point or another it will push out another growth. And what I'd like to do this time is, when the new growth comes, this one doesn't die back, because that's what's been happening with mine an awful lot. So I've got to try and avoid that from now on. But that's got a couple of nice roots. There's not an active growing tip on any of them that I can see. That one has actually died back a bit. So my scissors have already been sterilised. I'm just going to trim that one back. There's no point in leaving a dead root tip. I can go back a little bit more. That's better. This one's an active root. That's an older root. And this is an older root from the older part of the plant. Nonetheless, it's still healthy. It's still okay. But you can see some root stumps that failed. They may reactivate again. Who knows? I'm not the world's leading expert on these things. In fact, I've done badly with these. So don't do what I do, will you? But the idea is to get these roots into some new media that it can stay there for some time. This was last repotted about 18 months ago, and I'm determined with the few paths that I've got that they're not going to stay in their media anywhere near as long as they used to. You know, irrespective of the fact that it's in Orchids bark, I don't care. I just want them in fresh media frequently. Right, I'm not washing this off or anything like that. It doesn't need it. I just want to get it in a new pot, a bit bigger than the older one, give it a bit of room, and we'll see where we go from there. Now this media that I've got here is left over from when I did the Masdevallia, the last repotting video I did, and the media is fine. It's small bark, it's got some large perlite in it, and it's got some broken up moss, so it'll do fine. Paphiopedilum will do fine in that, so I don't need to go and get some more media. There should be more than enough to do this pot full. And you need to go careful with path roots. They seem quite sturdy and chunky, but they don't take to bending. You try bending them. Now, if this plant's going to push up some new growths, wishful thinking, they're going to be at this side of the plant. The plant naturally leans over that way. Well, that's fine. It can stay exactly as it is on the grounds that the new growths will then be in the centre of the pot. They'll have room. That's if we ever get any, of course. And you know me, I am not a heavy potter. I do not press things down hard. The water will do that for me. And at the end of the day, with a root system like that, there won't be any air gaps. There just won't be any. They're not going to be there. I might have to go and get a little bit more media. I was hoping that was going to be enough. Maybe, but I want this up round the base of the plant. And once I start tapping this down, I'm going to have a gap. The plant's going to be sitting too high in the pot, which I don't want. So I'm just taking the perlite off near the top. So once I pack that down, that's sitting far too high in the pot. You can see the base of the plant is above the media, and again here the top of the root's exposed, so that's no good. Yeah. So I'll mix up a bit more media, and I'm going to be a bit heavier on the moss near the top of the plant, so that as those roots come out, they've got a nice moist environment to get their root tips down into the media. If they hit air, they tend to dry out very fast, and then they just stop growing. You know, they abort. So I'll go and get a bit more media. I'll be back. Okay, I wouldn't recommend doing this. If you're going to use this dry moss, I would recommend that you soak it before you put it into the media. I remember once somebody said, "Oh, if that sort of moss ever dries out, you'll never get it wet again." Yeah. Believe that when I see it. But yes, it works much better if you soak it first. But the first thing this pot's going to get is a good soaking. So I'm not particularly fussed in this one instance using some dry moss. But I do like to break it up small. It gets into more places than the big long strands. You end up with parts of the media with no moss in and other parts that are like overdosed. By breaking it up small, it distributes nicely throughout the media and keeps it nice and evenly moist. That are my theory, what I have. A bit of grass. And the other thing with Paphiopedilums is they like their roots dark, so if, you know, I'm happy to use a clear pot so that I can see what the hell's going on with the roots and, you know, foresee problems before they get out of hand. I do like that facility. This is why I use clear pots, but I just stand it in a dark pot. That puts the roots in the dark with easy access to the visuals. Right, probably mixed up too much now, but nonetheless I still want the base of the plant just in the media, just sort of sat on it without being buried right up to the neck, because the base will rot. It has that capability. And I'm keeping it loose round the base, so yes, the base of the plant will be hydrated. There's still some air in there. I'm just going to ease that down a little bit to make sure it's touching all the roots without crushing them. And once you do that, you find you can get another ½ inch of media sat on the top. They still like some air in round there, they don't, you know. Don't want to be compacted too much. There must be the facility for air. And you do have to bear in mind, the way I water, I pour a lot of water in the top of the pot. And as I'm doing that, the pot sort of fills up with water, you know. And what that does is force all the air out. And then as the water drains out through the bottom of the pot, new air is sucked in the top of the pot. So it refreshes the air in the pot, which replenishes the oxygen and everything else that the plant needs. So dribbles of water don't do the job. You're going to water, give it a soak, and then wait till it needs it again. Which with these comes around quite quickly, because these are in the house at the moment, because it's too cold out in the grow room for these. The mottled leaf ones tend to be warmer growers. It's not across the board, but in the main, the plain green ones will tolerate lower temperatures than the mottled leaves ones, and all of the ones I've got are the mottled leaves ones, because it's the only way I will put up with one of those. If that was just plain green leaves, that would be about as boring as it comes for me, and unless it's actually in bloom, it then becomes something I'm not interested in. But with these beautiful patterns on the leaves, I can tolerate that plant not in bloom. Not forever, mind. Okay, that's that. Actually, I'll write a new label. Rose gave me some huge bundles of white labels, and just for aesthetic purposes, it would be nice as I go round the plants to actually replace some of these flippy floppy things with white labels with black writing on, which looks very neat and tidy. It's strange though, my yellow labels, not this sort, the stiffer ones, I've actually recognised my plants in other people's collections because they haven't changed the labels, and I don't see many other people use yellow, I must admit. But at the moment I've got all sorts of flipping colours out there, which I will gradually replace. So I'll do a new label for that one. Yeah, I think that's sat deep enough, and if after watering a couple of times it starts to sink away from the base of the plant as the media settles, I'll top it up. But I want the base of that plant hydrated so that any new roots go straight into the media. Now, this one's either going to grow on and bloom, or it's going to grow on a little bit and stop and a new growth will come out. But I doubt if it will do both. It's not a strong enough plant. It's got nothing backing it up. The old fan on it's got 2 leaves on it. You know, it did bloom, so we'll see where we go with that. In my notes I have around 40 plants to repot at some point between now and, well, probably end of March, something like that. And if you work that out, I need to get cracking. But I don't like doing lots all at once. I get bored with the process, so I like to do 1 or 2 quite frequently. So there might be a few repotting vids coming up. But first thing I need to do is sort out whether I've got enough media to actually do the task. We've got a show at the end of February, that's the Bournemouth Orchid Society show, and at the show will be Peter White, which is where I get my Orchiata bark from. He's now selling another product, another type of bark, which is cheaper, because basically the price is a little bit less, but you also get more in the bag, which relatively means it's a cheaper bark. But I'm not buying it until I've had a chat with him about it, because, you know, he knows about what he sells. He's not just a seller, he's actually an orchid person. So, and he won't give you duff budgies. He won't tell me that's better than Orchiata if it's not. He'd rather I walked away and didn't buy something than walk away with something I'm not going to be happy with. He's that sort of guy. So, and I mean, I've known him years, so I'm quite happy to take his word. So there we go, that's that one done, and there'll be a lot more repots of varying sorts. Some that are in pots at the moment are going on mounts. There's one plant on a mount that might go in a pot, but I'm still undecided. I think I might give it another season on the mount and then actually put it in a pot when the new growths come after it's bloomed. He says with confidence. Well, it is a brassica and it did bloom on the last growth, which was nowhere near as big as the one it's putting up now, so it should bloom. Might even put up 2 spikes, you never know, 1 each side. Anyway, that's that little one done. Simple, easy task. Most important thing with Paphiopedilums is not let the media break down. Don't let it turn acidic. They have a tendency towards more alkaline media. Not all of them, but a lot of them. So it's better to err on the side of caution. And as I say, they are sort of semi-terrestrials. A lot of people think of them as, you know, growing. They don't grow bare-rooted on a tree, let's put it that way. They grow in stuff. They grow in moss and leaf litter and places like that. But a lot of them do grow in places where they're near limestone cliffs and, you know, soil-based limestone stuff. And the water runoff from there is obviously quite alkaline, which is where they get the reputation for not liking acidic media. There are some that grow on the forest floor in the leaf litter. Don't get them confused. Finding out is fun. Have fun with that. Especially if you've got complex hybrids. You haven't got a clue what's in there. Anyway, that's that one done. And we'll give that a very good water now. A real good soaking. And I shall probably come back in a couple of days and do it again, because that's new bark and it will dry fast. And I don't want those roots to dry out. So that's what we'll do with that one. See you next time. Bye for now.